everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Abhisha Gulati and today I'll teach you chapter number 1, Psychology of Class 12. Now, हमने अभी तक intelligence की theories पढ़ ली. We have studied what are the variations in intelligence. We have studied the different psychological attributes. Today we'll almost complete the rest part of the chapter. It's very easy. This chapter is a very interesting chapter if you pay attention to it carefully. Now, intelligence testing in India. Before I flip the slide, let's talk about India. So in India, basically intelligence के जो टेस्ट थे वो SM मोहसिन से स्टार्ट हुए थे, ठीक है? SM मोहसिन से स्टार्ट हुए थे इंडिया में इंटेलिजेंस टेस्ट एंड अराउंड लाइक 1930s में जब इंडिया इंडिपेंडेंट नहीं हुई थी उससे थोड़े से ईयर्स पहले की बात है ये कि SM मोहसिन ने एक बहुत अच्छा अटेम्प्ट किया था, एक बहुत ग्रेट अटेम्प्ट किया था. उनने क्या किया था, जो सारे वेस्टर्न टेस्ट्स हैं उनको हिंदी में कंस्ट्रक्ट करने की कोशिश करी थी टू मेजर द इंटेलिजेंस ऑफ पीपल. ठीक है, जैसे SM मोहसिन ने वर्क किया था वैसे ही CH राइस थे जिन्होंने उर्दू और पंजाबी में बिने के टेस्ट को स्टैंडर्डाइज करने की कोशिश करी थी. जो बिने का टेस्ट हमने बात करी थी कि बिने, अल्फ्रेड बिने had made his own theory of one factor theory, right? वैसे ही और अदर साइकोलॉजिस्ट थे, इंडियन साइकोलॉजिस्ट थे जो बहुत बड़े बड़े साइकोलॉजिस्ट थे जिन्होंने इंटेलिजेंस टेस्ट कंडक्ट करने की और इंटेलिजेंस टेस्ट को इंडिया के लिए स्टैंडर्डाइज बनाने की कोशिश करी थी, so that they fit into Indian culture, they fit into everything that Indian people need. So let's flip this slide. Now, SM Mohsin, his full name was actually Sayyid Muhammad Mohsin. ये book में नहीं है, but it's good to know. So SM Mohsin made a pioneer attempt in constructing intelligence test in Hindi, and intelligence test. So his attempt of intelligence test was made in 1930s. Now, just like him in 1930s, CH Rice attempted to standardize Binay's test in Urdu and Punjabi. Now, CH Rice को आप remember करने के लिए ऐसे याद रख सकते हैं. I mean, it's not at all related to this, but you can remember that CH is like Chandigarh. तो चंडीगढ़ में बहुत ज़्यादा राइस उगता है एंड चंडीगढ़ में पीपल बेसिकली स्पीक उर्दू एंड पंजाबी, सो यू कैन रिमेंबर इट लाइक दिस. आई मीन इट्स जस्ट अ टेक्निक टू रिमेंबर. It has nothing to do with CH Rice. His work is very, very significant in the field of psychology, but it's good to remember. Like, if it's good to use such techniques to remember. Now, at the same time, Mahana Lobis ने बिने के टेस्ट्स को स्टैंडर्डाइज करा था बंगाली में. सो दीज क्वेश्चंस कैन कम फॉर 1 markers, so just keep them in mind. Okay, also Indian researchers tried to make Indian norms for Western tests. Now, what are norms? Norms are basically average performance in comparison, or some rules are made in comparison to the average performance of the population. So basically, why do we need Indian norms? We need Indian norms because we need to compare the intelligence of people in comparison to Indian population, because there is a role of culture to play. Like we studied in the last video that some tests are culture fair, some tests are culture bias. So we need an Indian norms for specialized tests which are conducted only for Indians, because there are certain aspects of Indian intelligence involved in them. So various Indian researchers made attempts to develop Indian norms for Western tests such as RPM. RPM is Raven's Progressive Matrices. Then WES is Wechsler's Adult Intelligence, and WES is Wechsler's Adult Intelligence Test. And then Alexander's pass along test is also there, cube construction test, and Coe's block design test, which is a performance test. ये सारे जो टेस्ट थे इनकी इंडियन नॉर्म्स क्रिएट करने की कोशिश करी. Long and Mehta, their full name is basically Louis Long. I'll just write it for you if you want. I'll write it. Their name is Louis Long. Not written in your book, but good to know. Louis Long and Perrin Mehta. Okay, Perrin Mehta. PERRIN. Perrin Mehta. So Louis Long and Perrin Mehta, these two developed a mental measurement handbook in which they listed out 103 tests, intelligence tests, which are available in different languages. Now, since then, a number of tests have been developed either from the scratch or they have been adapted from the Western culture. Now, another very important point, the National Library of Educational and Psychological Tests, NLEPT, at the National Council of Education Research and Training Critical. So, the National Library of Educational and Psychological Tests, NLEPT, at NCRT, National Council of Education Research and Training, ये जो नेशनल लाइब्रेरी है जिसमें सारे साइकोलॉजिकल टेस्ट लिखे हुए हैं नोटेड डाउन एंड लिस्टेड है, ये लाइब्रेरी रिव्यू करती है इंडियन टेस्ट को और इनकी एक हैंडबुक बनाती है, ठीक है. सो NLEPT इज बेसिकली लाइब्रेरी एंड अ कलेक्शन ऑफ टेस्ट जिसमें एक हैंडबुक है जिसमें बहुत सारे इंडियन टेस्ट लिखे हुए हैं, इंटेलिजेंस के बेस पे, एप्टीट्यूड के बेस पे, पर्सनालिटी, इंटरेस्ट एक्सेट्रा. Now, a list of some tests developed in India. So, a list of some intelligence tests developed in India is given. I don't think this need much discussion, but still I'll just explain them in brief. So, there are some verbal tests. Verbal tests are those where language is used. Like example, questions are given for you. Items are given in the test for you in 1, 2, 3, 4, like in MCQ format, or in you have to describe them. So that's verbal test. So CIE verbal test is there. CIE is basically Central Institute of Education. Okay, you can write it somewhere, not written in a book, but good to know. CIE is Central Institute of Education Verbal Group Test of Intelligence by Uday Shankar. Okay, then there's Group Test of General Mental Ability by S. Jalota. Then there's Group Test of Intelligence by Prayag Mehta, and this test is in Hindi. A good fact to know. Then there's Bihar Test of Intelligence by S.M. Mohsin. Okay, the Bihar Test of Intelligence by S.M. Mohsin. Then there is Group Test of Intelligence by Bureau of Psychology, Allahabad. The Allahabad Bureau of Psychology is a very famous Bureau of Psychology. So this can come for a 1 mark question. So just mark it. Then comes the Indian adaptation of Stanford Binet Test, 3rd edition by S.K. Kulshet. Now this test is very important. Again, mark a star in front of it. 1 mark question can come. And just something good to know that this test was developed like near 1960s. Okay. Then test of general mental ability, which is developed in Hindi by MC Joshi. Now, an MCQ question can come like, which test was developed, which intelligence test was developed by S.M. Mohsin, or Prayag Mehta developed which test of intelligence. It's very easy. Just write it down for at least like 2 to 3 times and you'll remember it. Okay, very easy to remember. Some important tests among these are the S.K. Kulshetra one, then this is the Bureau of Psychology one, then the test by S.M. Mohsin is very important, and S. Jalota's test is also very important. All tests are important, but these are more important according to me. Now, performance test. Performance tests are those tests in which you have to perform, you have to do certain tasks that is given by the test taker or test administrator. Some tasks like you have to match the blocks or you have to do any task. So Central Institute of Education non-verbal test, group test of intelligence is the first one. Then Bhatia's battery of performance test. This is a very famous test. It's also written, a separate line in the book is written that among these tests, if you can see below the 4th point, among these tests, Bhatia battery of performance test is quite popular. So this can come for 1 mark. That which test was developed by Bhatia. Okay. Now there's a draw a man test by Pramila Phatak. This was basically made specifically for Indian children. Then there's adaptation of Wechsler's adult performance intelligence scale by R. Lingaswamy. So this is also a very important test because it's an adaptation of David Wechsler's test. David Wechsler's adult performance intelligence test. scale. So this is also an important test. Now question comes that we have studied about intelligence, we have studied about intelligence tests, but have you ever thought that these intelligence tests can be misused by people? If you just go and conduct these tests on just a random person, if you do not have the qualifications to conduct, if you don't have the entire knowledge, you are not trained to conduct these tests, and you conduct these tests on a random person, this can lead to several adverse consequences. So there are a lot of misuses of intelligence tests, and intelligence tests have many purposes, but if they are not used wisely, then they do more harm than good. Now, intelligence tests serve many useful purposes, like you can use them for selection. If you want to select someone for your particular job, if you want to counsel someone, you can administer a test on them, and on the basis of the test, you can counsel a person. Then you can use it for guidance. You can guide them on the basis of their test results, whatever guidance they require. You can use them for self analysis. You can analyze them. Then you can use them for diagnosis. Unless used by a professional, by a trained investigator, these tests can be misused intentionally or unintentionally. Maybe intentionally these tests are being misused, maybe unintentionally these tests are being misused. So some of the ill effects of these tests are: firstly, poor performance on a test may attach a stigma. So firstly, that if a child, an example, if a child IQ test says that his or her or their IQ is 80, and the child feels, oh, my IQ is very less, and their parents and teachers and other people also say that, okay, this child's IQ is less, so the child might feel uh, like a stigma. The child might attach a stigma on him or herself. The child might have lower self-esteem. The self-respect of the child, the performance of the child may affect this. So poor performance on a test can affect. So we have to be very careful while we are dealing with the intelligence of children. While we are dealing with such tests. If a professional will take your IQ test, then the professional will also guide you that, okay, if your IQ is low, it's fine, you can do certain things. If you are good in certain areas, you are good in this. So it depends on the trainer, it depends on the person who is administrating your test, how he or she will help you eradicate that stigma. Okay. Now when a child let's take this example only. If a child gets the result that his or her IQ or their IQ is 80, then parents, teachers, and elders in the society may also use discriminatory practices, maybe unintentionally, maybe intentionally, towards the person. That will be also harmful for him or her or them. Now, another point is that some tests which are culture biased, they might favor some people who are of higher socioeconomic classes as compared to those who are of lower socioeconomic classes. So, administering a test based in favor of middle class, for example, a test is culture biased, as I told you. Then administering such tests on people who have low, uh, who are who belong to low socioeconomic classes might uh, come into play, might lead into less results, or might give wrong or incorrect results. Example could be, if an IQ test a question comes that identify the picture of an air purifier. Now, in these times, air purifiers are mostly bought by those who are wealthy, or at least at a good economic status. Okay. So now this same question that identify the picture of an air purifier is given to a person who is stuck in the cycle of poverty, who is not able to get adequate shelter, who is just struggling. That child. So a child with a lower socioeconomic status is given this question. The child might not be able to answer it because the child has not seen an air purifier in the entire span of their life. That does not mean that the IQ of the child is less. So such culture bias tests can cause a lot of problems. Also, intelligence tests do not talk about creativity, do not talk about the practical side of intelligence. So here we could just recall about the triarchic theory, that intelligence is also what things you are creating, what novel solutions are you presenting towards the problems that are already exist in the environment, how are you practically dealing with the challenges of the environment. So intelligence tests might not capture these potentialities, and thus people might not be able to relate to them. Also, intelligence tests might not be able to justify the fact that a person will either be successful in life or not. So intelligence can be a potential factor for achievement in various spheres of life, but it is important that we guide ourselves, we guard against such erroneous practices, we understand the importance of going to train psychologists, understand the importance of training in this sector. So always, if you want to get your intelligence tested, if you want to get your personality tested, if you want any guidance, counseling, always go to a trained professional. Always go to a psychologist, because he, she, or they are the best person, best people to help you out. And half knowledge is worse than no knowledge. So always go to trained psychologists, because they know exactly how to analyze your strengths and weaknesses. Now, let's talk about culture and intelligence. Okay. Now, what is culture? Culture is basically a collective system. Culture is the entire cosmos, entire system of your customs, of your attitudes, of your beliefs, of what you think, of your achievements in the sector of art, literature, and other forms. Okay. How is culture related to intelligence? Let's understand. Firstly, the importance of intelligence is that intelligence helps you to adapt to your environment, and the environment is your culture. So, this is the first basic correlation between them, that intelligence is some an ability that is, it is like we studied, as said by David Wechsler, that intelligence is the global and aggregate ability to think rationally, act purposefully, and deal effectively with your environment. So, as intelligence helps you to adapt to your environment, in a similar way, environment also helps you in developing your intelligence. So, the cultural environment provides a context for intelligence to develop. Now, Vygotsky is a very famous Russian psychologist. I'm sure you must have heard his name. He good portion of Vygotsky is also mentioned in class 11. So Vygotsky argues that culture provides a social context in which people live. So Vygotsky says that culture provides a context to people, a social context to people in which they live, they grow, they understand the world around them. For example, in less technologically developed societies, like let's take an example of the Africas, not undermining their qualities, or their different positive sides, but just an example, just an hypothetical example. Societies which are less technologically developed, social and emotional skills in relation to uh, other skills are more valued. Whereas in technologically advanced societies, like in the Western societies, personal achievement is more valued in comparison to society and social relations. So, what is intelligence? The concept of intelligence differs from one culture to another. If you talk about cultures that are more dependent on technology, they'll say intelligence is related to calculation. Intelligence is related to how are you analyzing data, how are you using that complex data in a simplified manner, how are you breaking it into components and solving your problems. Whereas some Asian societies might tell you that intelligence is how you are helping the society, how are you working in coordination with all other elements, how are you uh, showing your emotional competence, how are you being uh, goal oriented in your behavior. So culture is a collective system of customs, beliefs, attitudes, and achievements in art and literature. A person's intelligence is likely to be tuned by these cultures. This means that these cultures are likely to influence your intelligence. Now, many theorists have regarded intelligence as an attribute that is specific to the person. So, like Vygotsky said, that the culture you live in has a great impact on your intelligence. Just like in the opposite way, many theorists said that no, culture is different, intelligence is different. Many theorists regard intelligence as attributes that are just specific to the person. It has no relation to culture. But nowadays, the unique features of culture have shown that no, they have certain role to play in your intelligence. For example, Sternberg's notion of contextual or practical intelligence, as we talked about in the theory of theory of intelligence, this contextual intelligence says that intelligence is a product of nature. So this is a one mark question, remember it. Also, Vygotsky wala part B can also come for 1 marks. Okay, 1 mark. Now, one more thing. Vygotsky believed that culture is like individual. So Vygotsky has metaphorically compared culture as individuals. Metaphor, what is a metaphor? Metaphor is indirectly comparing two things. So Vygotsky said that culture is just like an individual. Cultures also have a life of their own. Cultures also grow. Cultures also change. Culture also processes information, whatever is happening around them. Culture also develop. So according to Vygotsky, this is a very important question and very important part and very easy to understand. So according to Vygotsky, our basic elementary functions like crying, reacting to what stimuli that are available in the environment. If someone is shouting in the background, you'll react to it. If a baby is just touched a little by a stranger, the baby will start crying. Sensitivity to smell, sensitivity to touch. If you touch a hot pan, regardless of your culture, you will push your hand back. So such elementary mental functions are universal to all. Okay, but the higher mental functions like how knowing how to swim, learning how to write, speaking differently, maybe dancing, maybe conducting day-to-day activities, making presentations, everything, higher mental functions like problem solving, thinking, these operate at a culture produced manner. So what he means is that जो basic functions होते हैं human being के वो हर culture में common होते हैं, लेकिन जो higher mental functions होते हैं वो हर culture में different होते हैं. They are produced by the culture. Okay, they are related to your culture. Now, technologically advanced societies जो होती है, they adopt child rearing practices very differently from non-technologically advanced societies or less technologically advanced societies. Now, what are these child rearing practices? Some examples could be they teach their children skills of generalization, how to generalize between different things, how to abstractly notice different stimuli, they teach them speed, they teach them minimum moves. So basically think of a robot. What does a robot do? Robot has speed, the qualities of a robot. They teach basically the qualities of a robot to their children. How to be very speedy, how to make minimal errors, how to mentally manipulate different concepts. So these societies promote a type of behavior which is called technological intelligence. 1 mark question, very important to remember. Technological intelligence. Let me underline it for you. Okay, so these people are well versed in attention, observation, analysis, performance, speed, achievement orientation. So these concepts are very uh, widely taught by parents in their child rearing practices. Now, an important point to remember: note, technological intelligence is not as valued as in many Asian and African societies. Why? Because the development of Asian and African societies has been in certain way that they have always valued people more than machines. That is what I think. So the qualities and skills regarded as intelligence in Western societies are completely different from non-Western societies. So according to Western societies, if you can make minimal errors, you can do speed work, you can mentally manipulate things, if you are very attentive, if you can analyze information, you are achievement oriented, you focus on yourself, then you're intelligent. But things are different in non-Western societies, and these qualities and these skills are sharply different. But nowadays, because the world has become a global village and the divide has decreased, the boundaries are gradually vanishing between these two types of societies, but still these boundaries are there. So we cannot say these boundaries have disappeared, but we can say these boundaries are gradually vanishing. One mark of question can come. So in addition to cognitive competence, what is cognitive competence? Mental capacity. It is basically your ability to know things. So cognitive competence involves a lot of things like attention, memory, thinking. So apart from these qualities that are given more importance in the Western and technologically advanced societies, non-Western societies also look for skills that relate to others in the society. How are you able to relate to others? How are you able to help them? How are you able to benefit to the growth of the society? This is something that people in the non-Western society think about. Now let's talk about intelligence in the Indian society. What does the Indian society think about intelligence? Just a while ago, we studied about intelligence tests in India. So, what does the Indian society think about intelligence? Basically, the notion of intelligence in Indian society is known as integral intelligence. So let's understand from the word integral intelligence. Integral means that you combine everything, you integrate all aspects. If intelligence is just cognitive competence, if intelligence is emotions, if intelligence is just related to how you deal with the society, intelligence is just related to how you solve problems. Indian notion of intelligence is combining all these notions. Okay, so this is what the Indian notion of intelligence talks about. Now, Indian notion of intelligence says that we pay a, an equal attention to cognitive and non-cognitive processes, and we feel that Indians feel that intelligence is a cognitive as well as a non-cognitive process. So, Indian thinkers view intelligence from a holistic, from a complete overall view. So they take into account different factors. A one mark question, important to remember: the Sanskrit word buddhi is often used to describe intelligence in India. You must have heard this. This is a very popular Hindi word, buddhi. This is a Sanskrit word, basically, not Hindi. Sanskrit word buddhi is often used to represent intelligence in India, but this word, the meaning of this word is far more pervasive. Pervasive means far more elaborate, far more broad as compared to the Western concept. So, buddhi, according to JP Das, one mark question, buddhi according to dash person can come for your exams. So, buddhi, according to JP Das, includes such skills such as your mental effort, such as your determined actions, such as your feelings, your opinions, such skills, as well as your cognitive skills like your knowledge, your skill to discriminate between two stimuli that are similar looking or maybe different looking. Then your understanding of your surroundings. So buddhi is basically the knowledge of your own self, the knowledge of self, which is based on your conscious, which is based on your willpower, which is based on your desires, your needs, your. So buddhi is basically, according to JP Das, buddhi is how are you able to deal with your world? How are you able to deal with yourself? What is your knowledge of yourself? What is your conscious doing? What is your willpower? Your how strong are your desires? All these aspects are included in buddhi. Now, thus the notion of buddhi as an affective. Affective means, so affective must be a new word for you all. Affective, you can just for now, for your understanding, you can see affective as emotions. Okay, but it is a deeper word. But let's just understand for the surface. Affective means emotions. So thus the notion of buddhi has emotional and motivational components to it, as well as a strong cognitive component, unlike the Western. Now there are four important four important phases, four important components of intelligence in the Indian tradition. One mark of questions can very well come from them. So just remember. Now first is emotional competence. Let's start from the C part, okay? Emotional competence is your ability. Competence, the word competence means ability. Your ability to process emotional information. How are you able to regulate yourself? Are you able to monitor yourself, your emotions? Can you keep a check on your emotions? Are you honest? Are you polite with others in the society? Do you conduct in a well formed manner? Do you evaluate your emotions? Do you keep a check on your emotions? Do you evaluate your actions? If you do, then you are good in, or you have high emotional competence. Now the first is cognitive capacity, which we already studied in the technological net. It's basically your sensitivity to context, whatever context is outside. Are you able to notice it? Are you sensitive to it? Are you able to react to it? Your understanding, discrimination, problem solving, and effective communication. Are you able to communicate effectively? Now, then the second part is social competence. Social competence is, are you able to respect others in the society? Are you committed to elders? Are you committed to the needy? Are you committed to young people as well? Because we can respect our elders easily, but we should also respect young people. We should also respect our colleagues. We should respect everyone. So, are you concerned about others? Do you recognize others' perspectives when you take your decisions? So, if you do, then you have high social competence. Emotional competence, we talked about it. Then we come to entrepreneurial competence. So, entrepreneurial competence, it means what? Who is an entrepreneur? Entrepreneur is a person who has a business of his or her own, who is self-employed. So the skills of an entrepreneur are, the person is persistent, hardworking, the vigilant about different aspects, goal-oriented. So these all skills, if you have them, if you are committed to your work, then also you have entrepreneurial competence. Now, one thing to notice that जो A part है that is cognitive capacity and बाकी के जो three है वो सोशल कॉम्पिटेंस है, वो मतलब कॉम्पिटेंस है, वो कैपेसिटी नहीं है। दोनों बात सही सेम होती है, बट द वर्ड इज डिफरेंट हियर। सो ऐसा एमसीक्यू में कंफ्यूज करने के लिए आपको कॉग्निटिव कॉम्पिटेंस देते और बाकी ऑप्शन देते तो कॉग्निटिव कैपेसिटी है। कॉम्पिटेंस भी दे सकते हैं, विच इज करेक्ट, बट ऐसे मतलब अगर आपको कैपेसिटी भी दे दे, कॉम्पिटेंस भी दे दे, तो कैपेसिटी है। तो जस्ट रिमेंबर दैट। नाउ इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस, ओके, let's talk about emotional intelligence now. Emotional intelligence is a very beautiful concept, very important concept to remember, especially in these times, like in these COVID times. Emotional intelligence is something that everybody should study, irrespective of whether you have psychology or not. Now, what is emotional intelligence? See, your ability to process emotional information which is related to emotions. Are you able to process emotions? Are you able to identify your own emotions? Are you able to interpret your emotions? Are you able to feel your emotions? Are you able to understand others emotions? This is emotional intelligence. It is a set of skills that underlie accurate appraisal. Appraisal means perception. So, emotional intelligence is a set of skills that involve your accurate perception, expression, and regulation of emotions. Okay, accurate appraisal. You perceive your emotions. Firstly, I'll just explain you. So, accurate appraisal. First, you perceive your emotions, then you express your emotions, and when you express them, you regulate your emotions. So, A E R. So there are 4 to 5 definitions given. I've listed here. So you can learn any one of them because MCQ had coming in exam. So you just have to remember and understand the concept deeply. Now, a good IQ is important. A good IQ is important in life, but if your emotion if your emotional intelligence is low, then you cannot be successful. Because why? Because you will not be able to deal with your own emotions. If you're not able, if you're not capable of dealing with your own emotions or the emotions of others, maybe your boss or colleague, then how will you deal with them? So the concept of emotional intelligence was given by Salloway and Meyer. Okay, and Salloway and Meyer, basically both of them defined emotional intelligence as the ability to monitor one's own and others' emotions, to discriminate among them, and to use the information to guide one's own thinking and actions. Okay. Now, emotional quotient, what is EQ? EQ is basically similar, just IQ hota hai. वैसे emotional quotient is used to express emotional intelligence, just like IQ. So, in simple words, emotional intelligence is your capability to process emotional information efficiently and accurately. Now, emotional intelligence is given a lot of importance nowadays. Why? Because uh, peers, teachers, everybody has felt the need of this concept. Because if you're not good in handling your own emotions, if you're not sensitive to your feelings and emotions, if you are not able to perceive various types of emotions of others, then you cannot deal with your daily life challenges. Also, a good thing to remember is the difference between feelings and emotions. So, feelings is a more superficial, or I wouldn't say superficial, okay. Feelings is a more psychological concept, and emotions is a biological concept. So, emotions is something that is happening because of your hormones, because of biological processes that are present, and feelings are the psychological effect of emotions. Okay, this is a good thing to remember. Now, emotional intelligence is receiving increasing attention of educators for dealing with students who are affected with stress and challenges in the outside world. What are the characteristics of emotionally intelligent people? Firstly, they perceive and they are sensitive to their own feelings and emotions. If I am emotionally intelligent, I am able to perceive my emotions. If I'm getting angry, I will be able to perceive my emotions. I will be able to sense them. Be sensitive means you are able to sense, you are able to notice and feel your own emotions and feelings. Secondly, people who are emotionally intelligent perceive and sense others' emotions as well. Why and how? They notice others' body language, they notice the voice tone. If someone's speaking to me in anger, I can notice, I can see the body language is directing towards anger, then I should act accordingly. Then relate your emotions to your thoughts so that you can take them into account while taking decisions. What happens is when we are experiencing high emotions, extreme emotions like anger, like extreme sadness or extreme happiness, that might affect our decisions and might make us end up taking wrong decisions. So, if you have high EQ, you will be able to relate your emotions, whatever emotions you are facing, with your thoughts, and you will be able to take them into account while solving problems and taking decisions. An example could be if you're angry and you have to take a decision right now of choosing a career, then you will be able to understand that okay, I am angry right now, let me just postpone the decision, or maybe let me just regulate my own emotions so that I can take the decision wisely. Now, fourth point, understand the powerful influence of the nature and intensity of your emotions. So emotional intelligence also involves understanding that emotions have a very powerful effect on a person. Emotions have a very powerful nature and intensity. So if you are able to understand it, your EQ is very high. Also, fifth point, a quality of emotionally intelligent people is that they can control and regulate their emotions, their expressions while dealing with themselves and while dealing with others so that they achieve harmony and peace. Now, we have talked about intelligence in quite detail, right? Now let's talk about creativity, aptitude. So these special abilities. So this is like the last 2-3 pages of your chapter are very, I can say they are very vague. Okay, no serious questions come from there, but 1 mark questions can very well come. So we will mark it alongside as we study so that we do not miss anything, right? Now, firstly, what is aptitude? We studied earlier also. Aptitude is basically your underlying potential to acquire skills. If you're given training, if you're given knowledge, if you are given specific environment, then aptitude is something that is inborn inside you that will allow you to acquire that skill or that will allow you to pursue that skill in a very successful manner. So aptitude refers to special abilities in a particular field. And aptitude is a combination of your characteristics, your potential that is indicating that you have the capacity, you have certain capacity that if you acquire certain specific knowledge or skills that you will be able to achieve success in life. Now we assess aptitude with the help of selected tests. So just like intelligence के लिए intelligence tests होते हैं, aptitude के लिए भी aptitude tests होते हैं. And I'm sure most of you must have given or at least heard about aptitude tests because aptitude tests are very common, especially when you're you have to decide your streams in your grade 10th or in your grade 12th. So let's understand why are aptitude important. Why is aptitude important? Aptitude is important because if you understand the aptitude of a person, if I understand that my aptitude lies in English or in literature or in languages, then I will be able to pursue, then I will pursue my career in that field, and then I can predict my future performance. Since I have the aptitude for this, I have aptitude for maybe journalism, then I can pursue that in future. So while assessing individuals' intelligence, psychologists found that people with similar intelligence differently varied in wide variety of areas. So what I mean is that two people with IQ 100 and 100, okay, person A has an IQ of 100, person B has an IQ of 100, but both of them, person A might be great in dance, person person A might be great in dance, and person B might be great in physics. So what I mean is that the differences between people with similar intelligence but different abilities in acquiring knowledge is their aptitude. So these specific skills and abilities are called aptitudes. With proper training, a person's aptitude can be enhanced. What is the difference between aptitude and intelligence? Sorry, aptitude and interest. We just talked about it in like the first video, I guess. So interest and aptitude are different concepts. Interest is changeable. Interest is observable. You can observe your interest. Interest is a preference. Interest is very flexible, whereas aptitude is relatively rigid. Aptitude is also enhanceable, flexible, but relatively rigid in comparison to interest. Aptitude cannot be directly observed, but you can test it. Also, aptitude is slightly more important because if your aptitude does not lie in a field, then it takes a lot of time for your aptitude to develop. But if your interest is not in a particular field, you can develop your interest in a particular job. So person may be interested in a particular job but might not have the aptitude. Similarly, it could be reverse if you have the aptitude but you're not interested. So interest can be developed. So it is important for your aptitude and interest to lie in the same direction for success to take place. Now, aptitude tests are available in two forms. Firstly, independent tests, and secondly, generalized tests. So what are these? सबसे पहले तो aptitude test can be independent. इनको specialized भी कहते हैं. Okay, I'll just make a flow chart for you. So aptitude test can be independent. Basically, one test or just very specific in nature. Like example के लिए, I take an aptitude test of your mechanical ability. So mechanical aptitude, clerical aptitude, these are examples. Numerical aptitude का जो टेस्ट होता है, typing aptitude का, these are examples of independent aptitude test. What is a multiple aptitude test? It's a battery of tests. It's basically a collection of tests, or it's just one test. Maybe it's just one test, maybe it's just a battery of tests. But this test judges or analyzes your aptitude in a wide variety of areas altogether. They are mostly homogeneous in nature, and this is heterogeneous in nature. Specific aptitude test is specialized aptitude test is heterogeneous, and multiple aptitude test is homogeneous. Homogeneous means which is something which is mixing up something. This is very holistic. Okay. Now example is differential aptitude test, general aptitude test battery, the armed services vocational aptitude test battery. So these three examples are examples for multiple aptitude test, one mark question can come. Among these, differential aptitude test is most important. And a one mark question, I think this came in board exam some years ago, that what are the number of sub tests in the differential aptitude test. So among these, differential aptitude test is most commonly used in educational settings. Okay, so differential aptitude test is mostly used for education purposes, for maybe selecting your career, for guidance, etc. And there are 8 independent सब टेस्ट. इंडिपेंडेंट का मतलब यहाँ है कि 8 टेस्ट हैं जिनका कोई रिलेशन नहीं है एक दूसरे से. So first is verbal reasoning, second is numerical reasoning, third is abstract reasoning, fourth is clerical speed, then comes mechanical reasoning, space relations, spelling and language usage. So हमने ये जो 8 सब टेस्ट पढ़े हैं, how to remember them, I have an acronym for you. I'll just type it for you. So the acronym is basically, does not make sense, but आपने वो बचपन में slam books पढ़ी होंगी ना. So it's basically that whenever you have to mention your aptitude, just example कि ले आपका aptitude अगर किसी employer को देखना है तो आपकी slam book को नहीं देखेगा, आपके CV को देखेगा. CV is your curriculum writer. So example मतलब ये just एक technique है to remember. So it is slam. Okay, no, it's not. It's CV, not, so N capital O T, not slam. Note the triple S here. Okay. So CV, not slam. Basically, something to remember कि DAT के क्या 8 components है. So CV, not slam. I'll explain you. C for clerical speed, then V for verbal reasoning. Then comes your CV हो गया. फिर N is numerical, not is nothing. N numerical reasoning. Then from S from N space relations S, spelling is S, and then there's one more S, I guess. Okay, there's not one more S. I'll remove one S. Maybe I just made a mistake. Okay, so there are 2 S here. CV, not slam, what you understood, right? So L से हो गया हमारा language, और A से abstract reasoning, and जो M से हो गया mechanical reasoning. Okay, तो ऐसे आप रिमेम्बर कर सकते हैं कि किसी का एप्टीट्यूड देखना तो आप उसकी CV देखोगे, आप उसका स्लैम बुक नहीं देखोगे. तो रिमेम्बर कि डैट जो है एप्टीट्यूड टेस्ट है, डिफरेंशियल एप्टीट्यूड टेस्ट है, उसमें CV नॉट स्लैम है, बेसिकली क्लरिकल एप्टीट्यूड है, वर्बल एप्टीट्यूड है, एंड एज फॉलोज एज. ठीक है, and remove it. Now, let's go forward. J.M. Ojha made the Indian adaptation of DAT. So, several other aptitude tests have also been developed in India for scientific basis, for scholastic teaching, other basis. Now, even scientific aptitude, for studying scientific aptitude, scholastic aptitude, literary aptitude, also aptitude tests have been created. Now, let's come to the last part of the chapter. Let's quickly understand it. Very easy to understand. One mark questions बहुत कम आते हैं, but जो आएंगे, जो points मुझे लगेगा, I will explain you. ठीक है. Now creativity. What is creativity? Creativity is your ability to produce novel ideas. We studied this in class 11th. I would suggest you to just make a quick skim, like a read of that portion of the chapter of grade 11 just for your deeper understanding. If you don't want to read them, then also it's fine. Just for those who are interested. Now, what is creativity? Creativity is your ability to produce novel ideas. So some people are highly creative, some people are not so creative. So how do we compare to creative people? We cannot compare to creative people because manifestation of creativity is observed. We can observe creativity, but we cannot sense it. So we can observe it by if someone has composed a new poem, made a new painting, created a new chemical process, invented a new law, or break through a disease completely like COVID-19. These all are examples of creativity, despite the differences in creativity, because creativity lies in a whole different context. If you think about the word creativity, different things come to your mind. Despite these differences, one common element is production of something new and unique. We think we can normally people perceive creativity as concepts which are too complex. So when you think of creative people, you think of Tagore, you think of Einstein, you think of C.V. Raman, you think of Ramanujan, you think of these people. They are creative, they are highly creative. But in recent years, the concept of creativity is broadened. Recent years, may even artists, potters, people who make furniture, people who cook, they are also termed as creative. Though they are not working at as higher level as those who invent new laws for or who do like Einstein who discovered new laws of physics or who invented new things. उनके जितना नहीं है creative but still काफी creative है. So we can say that individual differences creativity में भी lie करते हैं. जैसे कि I explained with the like initials of the chapter that individual differences lie in each and every psychological attribute. So creativity is not left behind. Creativity में भी individual differences होते हैं. Einstein's theory of relativity is an example of highest level of creativity. One mark question can come. Another examples is कि कुछ पुरानी चीजें उनको मॉडिफाई कैसे करके आप न्यू पर्सपेक्टिव ला सकते हो. दैट इज ऑल्सो क्रिएटिविटी. नाउ हाउ इज क्रिएटिविटी डेवलप्ड इन चिल्ड्रन? Question can come. So research literature suggests that creativity begins to develop in the through imagination. So children creativity develops through imagination, and in the early years basically they manifest creativity through their physical activities, through their non-verbal activities. So they indulge in a lot of non-verbal and physical activities. If you would have seen that those wood block or those wood block puzzles or those toys the children play and match the following or color different pictures. So in early childhood they express their creativity through non-verbal terms, and as they grow up they express their creativity in verbal terms. So this can come for a one mark question. So when children are young, the creativity expressed in non-verbal sense, and when children are a little old, then their creativity is expressed through verbal modes. Now, something important to remember is that if there are variations in creativity, okay, no two creative people are same. Both have something in common that they are producing something unique, something novel, but they're different. Also, just like we explained, variations in intelligence, like nature or nurture, that nature provides a certain limit, a boundary, and nurture helps you reach up to that. Just in the similar way, creativity is also a complex product of the interaction of heredity and environment. There is no disagreement that creativity is determined by both heredity and environment. Limits of creative potential are set by heredity, and environmental factors help you to develop your creativity. For example, your gene said that you can be creative up to X level. So it depends on the environment. If your parents are supportive, if your environment is healthy, you are getting nutrition, you're getting schooling, then you will reach up to the level of your creativity. Now, something important to remember is that creativity is also dependent on environment, which includes your motivation, your commitment, your family support, your peer influences, etc. Okay. Now, Now, obviously, no amount of environment can transform you to the level of Tagore or Shakespeare if you are not made genetically in that way. But environment can raise the level of creativity of a person up to certain level. Now, what is the relationship between creativity and intelligence? If you remember, we talked about Louis Turvin, who in 1925 went behind the lives of 1,500 children who had an IQ above 130, who were gifted, and he researched how their intelligence is correlated with their success. Okay. So what Turman found out was that high IQ does not mean creative. Some people do not have very high IQ, but they're very creative. Some people are very creative but do not have a high IQ. Some people have a high IQ but are not creative. So there's no direct correlation, but at the same time, it is very important to remember that a certain level of intelligence is required for creativity to occur. Okay, so a certain level of intelligence is required for creativity to occur, but intelligence, therefore, by itself, do not ensure creativity. Researchers have found the relationship between creativity and intelligence is positive. One marker question always comes like every other year, it comes in your board exams. All creative acts require some minimal level of ability. I'll give you an example. If there's a painter, the painter will require some minimal level of intelligence to perceive the images, to solve problems, like to use their paintbrush, to mix and match colors. वहाँ पे creativity के साथ साथ intelligence भी involved है. So the artist must understand the effect that will be produced by a particular technique. इसलिए the artist must also think rationally, act purposefully. So creativity does not ensure, intelligence does not ensure that you will be creative, but there is a positive correlation between them. Also, a certain level of intelligence is required for creativity, but beyond that, creativity and intelligence have nothing in common. So, what is the difference between creativity tests and intelligence tests? Basically, the last topic of this chapter, last topic. Now, creativity tests basically assess variations in your potential of creativity. Basically, creativity tests assess that how many novel ideas can you develop. Uh, Intelligence tests measure your IQ. Check, they analyze that how are you able to think rationally? Are you able to act purposefully? Are you able to deal effectively with your daily life challenges? What is your IQ? So the main differences is that firstly, intelligence tests have close-ended questions. What are close-ended questions? Questions which have one answer. Questions which have objective answers. Okay. For example, what is the capital of India? The only answer to this question is Delhi. If you get another answer to this question, then your answer is wrong. But creativity tests, they involve open-ended questions. So, for example, a creativity question in a creativity test could be that when you think of a rectangle, what image comes to your mind? Now, the answer could be a pizza box, which is rectangle. The answer could be a laptop. The answer could be a book. Answer could be anything and everything you can do. So there is no one answer. It's subjective. Now another difference between creativity and intelligence tests is that both of these tests involve different types of thinking. If you remember, in grade 11th, we talked about thinking. We studied an entire chapter in grade 11th of thinking. So in divergent thinking, intelligence tests, creativity tests talk about divergent thinking. Basically, divergent thinking is you think in different directions. Think as many solutions as possible, there is no end. So divergent thinking, basically what is diversion? Diversion is something, this is your topic, you can go in endless ways, you can diverge. This is divergent thinking. Whereas intelligence tests say that no, converge. Come to just one solution. break down things, analyze, come to just one solution. That is conversion thinking, which is used in intelligence tests. And intelligence tests assess abilities like memory, logical reasoning, accuracy, etc. And whereas creativity tests talk about your different ideas, what is your ability to see new relationship between unrelated things, etc. Also, there is little scope of originality, imagination, spontaneity in your intelligence tests, because you're just saying to solve your problem. We are just saying solve the problems that exist. Now, I don't think this paragraph is much important. It just talks about that both of the tests are different. Creative tests involve thinking of a wide variety of solutions, whereas intelligence tests just talk about uh, solving problems. This is very important. Point number 6, you can mark it. This can come for 1 mark question. So some creativity tests are developed by Guilford. Guilford was J.P. Guilford. Talked about him, Joy Paul Guilford. And I also told you that he has worked in the field of creativity. So he has developed certain creativity tests. Guilford has developed certain creativity tests. Then came Torrance. So his name is basically Ellis Paul Torrance, and he made creativity tests. Good to know. Good to remember just. And then comes Khatena. So his name is Joe Khatena. Joe Joe Khatena, and he made a creativity self-report test along with Lawrence basically. And then comes Wallach. Wallach के बाद आता है Kogan, Paramesh, Bakir Mehndi, and Pasi. So these are also people who developed creativity tests, and these tests are only used after extensive training. So just like intelligence tests, no random person can administer these tests. Trained psychologists who are trained in the field of conducting, administrating, and evaluating creative tests can only administer them. So I'll just repeat the examples. It's J.P. Guilford who made creativity tests, then Ellis Paul Torrance, Khatena, Wallach, and Kogan. Wallach and Kogan made it together. Paramesh, Bakir Mehndi, and Pasi. I guess Bakir Mehndi का question 1 mark में आया हुआ है एक बार. Just remember these names, okay? Very easy to understand, very easy to remember. Now I think we have come to the end of this video. We have completed chapter number 1 successfully of psychology. Thank you for watching. Do like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Also, let me know in the comment section down below if you have any doubts. I have attached these notes. I know these notes में एक दो errors थी, कुछ spelling mistakes थी, एक point missing था. मैंने वो सारी corrections करने के बाद I have attached these notes in the comment section down below. So do check them out, and I would suggest you to take a printout of these notes and mark 1 mark questions as I teach you. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Bye.